Hi, my name is Alok Bhatia and I want to teach you business analysis. I've been teaching business analysis for 15 years now, and I'm very happy to claim that the BAs trained by me, the project managers trained by me, are working in companies like Google, Facebook, Wells Fargo, Uber, you name it, and our business analysts are there. The course is BAbAB. It's a course that has evolved over the last 15 years. Material has been added to it, material has been removed from it, with the sole purpose that every word coming out of my mouth should help you get into a job. That's the sole purpose of this course, to help you be a business analyst. So let's get started. Business analysis. I am talking to you today in my capacity as the CEO of Sync IT Learning and the chief instructor in this company. So the way the Sync IT Learning syllabus is laid out for business analysis is that we cover some hardcore topics of business analysis and project management like project charter, BRD, FSD, UML. But then BA is more than just these topics. A BA has to be a fully proficient IT professional, and as such, I also want to teach you QA topics like test plan and test cases. I want to teach you overall IT principles like SQL, XML, and of course, no BA course will be complete without software development lifecycle discussions like waterfall, agile, and prototyping. I also want to talk to you about how applications are laid out. What is a web server? What is an app server? What is a database server? So this video today is pretty much a window into what you would be getting if you were to join this course over 10 days. It's 4 hours a day for 5 days a week for 2 weeks. So if you do the math, that's about 40 hours of training. So there are many things that will help you be successful in this course. Of course, the obvious ones: study hard every day, do your homework, take a lot of notes. You'll hear a lot of new terms in this course that you would not have heard before. Write them down, look them up later on. Be optimistic, be cheerful, be positive, and have this attitude that, yeah, I can do this. Of course, a big part of this course is your communication skills, and spoken English and written English is an important aspect of being a BA. You need to have a can-do attitude. And then, of course, your English needs to be good. I know all of us come with a basic level of English, and it is what it is. But over time, if you're trying to make it into the field of business analysis and project management, your English should be pretty good, better than average. All right. By the way, you might notice something strange here. You might notice, wow, being technical is not one thing that you need to be a business analyst. And that is indeed correct, because really, you don't need to be a software developer. You don't need to have computer science, computer degrees, MIS degrees, MCA, computer applications, all of that. You just need to be smart, educated, well-spoken, and any technology skills that you need, I'll teach you in this class. Let's get into the thick of the material. What is a business analyst? This diagram pretty much sums up. A BA is a role that works closely with the project manager in creating documents like project charters, BRDs, and FSDs, and works as a liaison between the technical teams that actually do the implementation and test the implementation, and the business stakeholders who give the requirements. So definition of a BA is a technical liaison between the engineering teams and the business teams and the end users of an application. So a BA has a pretty unique role in an IT team. They act as this conduit of information flow between the technical teams who make the application and test the application, the business teams who fund the application, who sponsor the application, who pay for the application, and the end users who use the application. What better example than Netflix.com? We're all familiar with Netflix. The end users of Netflix are you and I, right? Then the business teams of Netflix, the teams that manage the subscriptions and the sales and the business development, right? They are the ones who give requirements to the business analysts over there. And then the technical teams, whether these are in-house teams, outsourced teams, offshore, onshore, nearshore, that doesn't matter. But a BA has to be a liaison between these three group of users. Let's take the example of a big bank. Take the example of Wells Fargo Bank. Wells Fargo Bank is a place where I worked for a long time. And I personally was a BA for the teller software. So my job was to be the liaison between the technical teams that were making the teller software, the business teams, let's call that team store branch operations team. I've changed the name of the group so as to maintain the intellectual property of Wells Fargo, but it was called a different team, but I made up this name. It pretty much reflects what that team did. Store branch operations team. So the business team was this one. The technical team were hundreds of developers and QA engineers, and then 70,000 end users, which were the tellers. So I, as a BA, was a liaison between the business team that owned the teller software, the end users who used the software, and the technical teams who made the software. So it doesn't matter which BA you are talking about. You could be talking about a BA in Genentech, in Wells Fargo, in Uber, in eBay. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, there'll always be these three entities that a BA is revolving around. A BA is closely talking to the business team, getting their ideas about the requirements, about the features, about what kind of applications we need to create, handing it over to the developers in specific functionality documents, whether they are project charters, business requirement documents, functional spec documents, product backlogs, prototyping technique. All these are things that we'll cover later. And then, of course, a BA also has to be pretty closely involved with the end users, and typically a BA is involved with end users through focus groups and through joint application development sessions and things like that. So let's take another example, AT&T. AT&T, all of us are familiar with AT&T. Imagine AT&T, go back 25 years when AT&T did not have a fancy CRM system. What does CRM stand for? Customer Relationship Management. So imagine 25 years ago, AT&T wanted to make a CRM system. Why did they want to make a CRM system? The current CRM system they had perhaps wasn't working out for them. They perhaps wanted to have a CRM system, a customer relationship management system that would scale with the needs of the organization. So there must be a business team in AT&T, a customer support team, a sales team that perhaps is the owner of this application, and then the customer support reps, 8,000 of them, right? These typically end users of these applications may not be very highly technical or highly compensated. They are just regular people, making a living using this app, right? These are the guys who are the the business people. These are the people making 100,000, 150,000 a year, right? So a BA has to work with all kinds of stakeholders, end users who might not be that technical in nature, technical teams that are extremely technical in nature, and then business teams whose sole purpose is to make money, right? So that's why a BA needs to have very wide-ranging skills. A BA needs to be good at business, good at communication, good at technology, good at problem solving, and it's really not rocket science. We have people who were bank tellers who are now business analysts. We have people who were taxi drivers who become business analysts. We have had people who were literally bartenders, but smart bartenders, well-spoken, presentable. They took this course, and within 3 months, They were working as a business analyst in an internship position that then converted to a full-time position. So a BA will have to work with the group that makes this CRM app, whether it is an in-house AT&T team or maybe Salesforce.com. For a few of you who haven't heard of Salesforce.com, it's a CRM company. It's a cloud-based CRM company that is the best known company in the world of customer relationship management. Let's keep diving ahead into the course material. Let's talk about SDLC. What is a software development lifecycle? Every application, every being goes through a life cycle. And for example, even a butterfly goes through a life cycle of an egg to a cocoon to larva, pupa, caterpillar, and butterfly, right? It doesn't just become a butterfly overnight. Similarly, a software has to go through many phases to be a fully functional deployed software. And the most popular SDLC is the waterfall SDLC. Waterfall SDLC has been around for decades, and it's a SDLC that says that software typically goes through these states: concept, requirements, design, development, all coding, QA, deployment, maintenance, and retirement. Let me reduce the font here so you can see it all in one screen. So that's what happens. Typically, a BA is involved in the concept and requirements phase, but they may also influence the design of the application. Those BAs that get involved in the design of the applications are sometimes called BSAs, Business Systems Analysts. Some BAs also get involved in the QA aspect of the application. They write test plan, they help out with UAT. BAs are involved in deployment of the application. Deployment means taking the fully functional code that has been made by the technical teams, tested by the QA teams. Now let's work with the data center people, network operations center people, and deploy it on our production servers. And once an application goes live, it has to go through various maintenance projects. It has to be maintained, it has to be enhanced, it has to be updated, change requests are happening to it. So we'll talk about all of that. And eventually application gets retired when it has served its purpose. So there are many different deliverables that happen in these various phases. For example, in the concept phase of an application, in the software development life cycle, we talk about why do we need this project? Who benefits? Who pays for it? What is the high-level schedule? So a project charter is a document that's pretty much a foundational document to a project. It's a document that lays out the groundwork for the rest of the X months, 3 months, 6 months, however long this project is. A BA is intimately involved in this phase. Then comes the requirements phase. This is the place where a BA is most involved. Here a BA talks to the business teams, the customers, the end user representatives, and gets into the nitty-gritty of the requirements. Later on, we'll talk about the difference between business requirements document and functional specification document. In a nutshell, BRD is just a statement of needs and wants of the end users stated in everyday language of the users. FSD gets into the behavior of the software. How will the software behave to be able to achieve the business needs? So typically, say a project charter is 3 pages, BRD may be 10 pages, and FSD may be 100 pages, right? So that's how these documents grow over time. We'll talk about UML, use case, unified modeling language diagrams. 2 of the most popular UML diagrams which are important for a BA are the use case diagrams and the activity diagrams. Then comes the design phase of the application. The way I teach this course, I want you to not just be a pure BA who's involved in concept and requirements. I want you to gain the respect of the developers. When you can talk to developers about entity relationship models, wireframes, class diagrams, n-tier architecture diagrams, like what's a web server, what's an app server, what's a database server, what's a load balancer, How does database replication work? That's when I believe you are a business systems analyst. And let me remind you one more time, you don't need to be a software developer to be a BSA. You just need to have this attitude that, yeah, I want to enter into the field of IT. I can do this. I know thousands of people who've done this before me, and I'm no less. With that kind of attitude, I can teach you the skills you need to be a business systems analyst. Development phase. This is that phase where really a project only stays about 30% of the time. Many people shy away from the field of software thinking, oh, I have to be a developer. But really think about this. A typical software project stays in the development phase only for 30% of the time. As such, the remaining 70% of the time is covered by people like BAs and PMs and product managers and all the functional people. So keep that in mind. And maybe one day you'll do a course in Java, you'll do a course in HTML, you'll do a course in Python. I promise you, it won't kill you. If anything, you'll come out much wiser, you'll have an appreciation for coding. I'm not asking you to take these courses now. Become a BA, work as a BA for 6 months, and maybe take a course in Java in a community college near you. The next phase of a software development lifecycle waterfall model is the QA phase, where you create, well, when I say you, I mean the QA team, or even a BA could be asked to help out, create test plans and test cases, test scenarios, test scripts, and things like that. Finally, the application gets deployed onto the production environment. A BA or a project manager has to oversee this process. Many times you'll stay up all night long from 12 midnight to 5 a.m. in the morning going live with an application deployment, because that's typically the time companies go live with deployment, because there's least amount of traffic on the servers. And then the application goes into a maintenance mode where bug fixes are done, new features are added, and so on and so forth. And eventually, application gets retired. So if somebody asks you, what does a BA do? I want you to answer it like this. A BA's job is to elicit requirements, document requirements, and disseminate requirements. And a BA's role is to deal with scope creep. What does scope creep mean? We'll talk about this later. But scope creep means a BA's constant struggle is when the business teams keep changing their mind about the requirements, about the features that they want, which is okay. In today's day and age, we live in an agile world, and we should be able to handle changing requirements. In a construction industry, in a house building industry, maybe scope changes are harder to deal with. For example, imagine if a customer or a client asks their architect, hey, I didn't think about a 6th room, now I want a 6th room in my house. That's not easy to achieve, right? Because once it goes in the blueprint, it takes massive amount of changes to put a 6th room in the house. But then for software, give your business teams the ability, but in a manner which can be handled. Because if scope change is allowed to just happen without you having control on it, your project will derail, right? So there's a very proper change request process which we have to go through, called a change management process. In project management, we call it perform integrated change control. What that simply means is understand the change that's being asked. What does it require? This change requires a change to what? To technology, to schedule, to of course, to the requirements, and then present a picture to the team that, hey, this little change would cause these many changes in the downstream systems, or these many changes in these other requirements and things like that. So these are the two roles of a BA. We often use the word stakeholders in business analysis. Let's define stakeholder. A stakeholder is a person or an entity who can affect the project or be affected by the project. right? So most people think of stakeholders as somebody who can affect a project, but there's an important aspect of stakeholders are people who can be affected by the project, right? As such, your customers are stakeholders because they can be affected by the project, right? There are many different things, different entities can affect your project, right? Your competition is a stakeholder. I say even a janitor is a stakeholder, agreed to a lesser extent, but nonetheless, right, if he doesn't clean up the place, your team will not be able to function, so they can affect the project, right? So just a stakeholder is a very broad word, I should say, and but there's one stakeholder which is very important, and that is the executive sponsor. Who's the executive sponsor? The person who pays for the project. So if you have to keep one stakeholder happy or the most happy, that's the sponsor, right? Because if he takes away the funding of the project, your project is gone, right? So keep in mind that sometimes stakeholders can be external to your organization. When I was with Wells Fargo Bank, Federal Reserve Bank was a huge stakeholder we always had to keep in mind. Their policies, their compliance rules and regulations had to be kept in mind in every project. If you're working for Genentech, right, any drug company, biotech company, FDA is a huge stakeholder. They can shut down your drug trials. They are intimately involved with your drug manufacturing process. If you work for a company like E-Trade, which is a stock brokerage company, SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, is a important stakeholder. So as a BA, you have to deal with internal stakeholders as well as external stakeholders. I mentioned who's an executive sponsor, someone who pays for the project, right? Let's take this example. This is a perfect example of how projects are done in real world. Imagine AT&T as a company is getting bad press. This is just an example. Why are they getting bad press? Because customers are being put on hold for a long time and they are not able to get through to the customer support reps. So the customer support vice president might think, you know what, this is dumb. Why don't we create a very full-featured portal, a self-service portal, where customers can come in and do the things that they're asking us to do. Add a line, remove a line, add a child account, upgrade my phone, increase my plan and things like that, right? So think of this project, right? A BA would be needed for this. A BA would have to gather requirements about what kind of scope to put on this portal. And who will be the executive sponsor for this project? Of course, the customer support group will have to pay for it. Maybe even the sales and marketing team may pitch in, right? For example, the HR department may not pitch in because really it's not his problem, right? He has his own set of projects going on. So in any project, stakeholder management, stakeholder discovery has to be done. And as a BA, you would have to do all of this, understand who are your stakeholders, what is their role in the project, how much power they have, how much interest they have, and then manage them accordingly. We talked about the scope of a project, but we haven't really mentioned what scope is. Scope simply means what are the features of the software? What can the software do? What are the capabilities of the software, right? So that's the meaning of the scope, right? So in simple words, scope is requirements and requirements is scope, right? If you ever were to take a PMP course, you'll learn that they technically mean different things. But for starters, let's just say scope equal requirements, right? So for example, what is the scope of E-Trade? These are all the things that E-Trade can do, right? What is not the scope of E-Trade? Of course, E-Trade cannot recommend latest fashion trends. It cannot get food delivered to the house. That's not the scope of the project, right? So scope simply means what are the features. Who decides the scope of the application? Of course, the business team, the team that's paying for it, the executive sponsor. But then, where does the business team get the ideas from? From the end users, from the market conditions, from competition. And also, like we said, external forces like SEC, etc., would also dictate the scope of an application, right? Let's talk about the topic of triple constraint negotiation. Triple constraint negotiation is a very important concept in the world of software development for a BA, for a PM. Typically, a project has three constraints: the cost, the time, and the scope, These are the three variables, three constraints that a BA or a PM has to manage. Let me also actually at this point of time tell you my thoughts about BA versus a PM. In my vocabulary, a BA equals PM. What I mean by that is many times BAs are asked to do project management work and project managers are asked to do BA work. As you know, many of the job requisitions that we get, because we're also into staffing, have half and half duties. They'll have BA duties and they'll have PM duties. And that's why this course, even though it's called a business analyst course, it actually also teaches you project management and a bit of product management, because really there is no strict BA role or a strict PM role. It's all sort of a mix of various responsibilities. So some people might say triple constraint is done by project manager, and I'll say sure. But in my view, a BA equals PM. So let's talk about the concept of triple constraint negotiation. So in a project, we have the cost, the time, and the scope as the three constraints. Now, executive sponsor who's paying for the project would want what? They would want the project team to do maximum amount of work in the least amount of time with the least amount of money. That's just how human nature is, right? What would the project manager want? The opposite, right? He would want to do the least amount of work in reasonable amount of time with enough resources, right? So now the executive sponsor and the BA or the PM have to come to a conclusion. They have to sort of get their expectations in line with each other. Specifically, what needs to happen is the project manager or the BA needs to understand, okay, Mr. Executive Sponsor, which out of these three constraints are the most dear to you? Scope, schedule, resources. Which one of these you do not want to change? For example, if things don't go as well as we thought it might go, do you want to negotiate on scope, schedule, or the resources, right? So the PM or the BA has to understand from the executive sponsor that which one of these three things is fixed in the mind of the executive sponsor. And after they learn that, they manage the project, sort of juggling the other two constraints, making sure that that one constraint is fixed, right? So, if you get an executive sponsor who says all three are fixed, then there's a problem, right? The PM has to keep prodding, keep badgering, keep sort of, discussing with the executive sponsor that, hey, good project management practices say that we need to fix one constraint so I can juggle the other two constraints, right? That's the concept of triple constraint. So as I was saying, if the executive sponsor says all three are fixed, then it's a problem, right? So you have to sort of make the PM understand, make the executive sponsor understand that, hey, executive sponsor, just because you're telling me that these two are flexible, I'm not going to take advantage of it, right? I still want to deliver the project the way you want it, but if and when things go wrong, what am I supposed to compromise on scope, on schedule, or on resources, right? I'll give a few examples. You guys all know Intuit as a company. They make TurboTax software, right? We know that TurboTax software has to hit the stores on Jan 1st, come what may, right? So in this particular project, we can say that what is fixed, the schedule is fixed, right? And the scope of the project and the resources of the project can change, but the timeline is fixed. I'll start this again. There was a little bit of background. Let's take the example of TurboTax. TurboTax, owned by Intuit, is a company that has to go live with their software on a specific date, right? It's a tax software. So now the project manager knows, come what may, timeline is fixed, right? Schedule is fixed. So now the project manager, the BA, may not be able to offer all of the scope that they had promised. Maybe they will not be able to deliver the scope of live face-to-face chat with the CSR and only deliver text chat. But they know that this timeline is non-negotiable, right? Let's take an example where resources are fixed. By the way, these are all fictitious examples, guys. I'm just making them up to make you understand how real life works, right? Let's take the example of Microsoft. I want to give an example of Microsoft where the schedule and scope is variable, but resources are fixed, right? So imagine Microsoft's R&D group saying, hey, we're gonna give $500,000 for this project, which would help us create a software for word processing, but which will be able to sort of use spoken words as opposed to written words, right? So in this particular example, which constraint is fixed? The resources are fixed, and the scope and the schedule is variable, right? So now perhaps, we'll have to keeping in mind that we only have $500,000, we may have to outsource the work to a cheaper team, right? And but it's okay. Even if the Indian team is delayed, we are okay as long as we kept this constraint fixed, right? So yeah, that's the example of a project where resources are fixed. As we get deeper into the course, we'll hear a lot of this terminology, so we might as well get it out of the way. PMI, Project Management Institute. It's an institute through which you get the PMP exam and the PBA exam. PMP stands for Project Management Professional, PBA stands for Professional Business Analyst, right? PMI has a book called PMBOK, Project Management Body of Knowledge. It's the Bible for the project managers. So if you ever take the PMP course, hopefully with me, you'll be learning the PMBOK with me. You can also do a PBA certification, Professional Business Analyst. A PBA certification only came into being like 7-8 years ago. PMP came into being like 40 years ago. So PMP is a much more well-known certification than PBA. I can help you become a PMP as well as PBA. There's another institute like PMI, it's called the IIBA, International Institute of Business Analysts, right? So in fact, this is an institute that has been around for business analysts much before PMI came up with the PBA exam. So IIBA definitely is a institute that is more well known for business analysts. They have a book called BAbAB, Business Analysis Body of Knowledge. And then they have a certification called CBAP, Certified Business Analyst Professional. Let me show you what a CBAP certification looks like, right? It's a CBAP certification from IIBA. Let me show you what a PMP certification looks like. This is what a PMP certification looks like, right? All right, guys, this is my introduction to business analyst day 1 video. I hope you got an idea about me, my teaching style, what is business analysis is all about, and I hope you will consider Sync IT Learning to be your launchpad for business analysis. I look forward to interacting with you in my live classes, where rather than listening to me on video, you are engaged with me either in person in our beautiful facilities here in Fremont, California, or online. We have virtual classes where I interact with each and every one of you. With Zoom, we all turn our videos on. I never use a blackboard or a whiteboard to draw things. I use a Surface laptop, and everything that the in-person class gets, the virtual class, the online class gets the exact same knowledge. And I'm extremely always mindful of my online class. If a question is asked in class, I'll make sure the question is repeated for the benefit of everyone. So until COVID days are over, I want to teach you, addition to classroom training in a virtual class, but hopefully after COVID, we'll be able to get together in person to continue our learning of business analysis. Oh, and by the way, we offer other courses like project management, professional business analyst, CBAP, CSM, CSPO, Safe Agilist, Safe Practitioner, ITIL, Salesforce.com certifications. Whatever your IT training needs are, we are here for you. Signing out for now. Take care and stay safe.